Welcome to Public Square. This is Ditmir Bushati. My guest today is Manuel Sarrazin, Special Representative of German government for the countries of the Western Balkans. Manuel was member of German Bundestag and he is currently President of Southeast Europe Association. Dear Manuel, it's a pleasure to have you on Public Square. You have been appointed Special Representative of the German government for the countries of the Western Balkans last year. So you are pretty familiar with the Balkans. What your experience is telling you about the state of affairs in the Western Balkan 6?
I think it's a mixed picture. And I think that the Western Balkans might do the mistake of missing a great opportunity again, as sometimes it looks like Western Balkans are the best in doing so. So on the one hand, we have a geopolitical shift which is bringing enlargement back as the main geopolitical policy tool of the European Union. On the other hand, enlargement in the Western Balkans seems to be weak as an argument for internal change. And I think this is the mixed situation. And then it's also following by usually the weakest argument of enlargement classically is people are not willing to wait and they want changes. And on the one hand, the region is on the one hand really patient regarding big policy shifts in the domestic spheres. On the other hand, people are leaving. So it's a difficult situation because people are leaving is dangerous for the country, but it's not dangerous for the current state of art of politics. Yeah, because people are to a certain extent also getting out. It's a task of enlargement to give back the hope to the people that they don't have to leave the country to the changes. We try to make a difference on a positive sense in this with our engagement as a government, with clear commitment to enlargement, with the Berlin process, but not falling into the trap just delivering steps on the paper in enlargement without actions on the ground.
So you were describing this trap that on one hand there is this argument coming from our region that EU is not willing to enlarge, and on the other hand there is this argument coming from EU capitals and from Brussels that they don't see a political will in the Western Balkans for reforms. How can we avoid this trap? I'm asking this question because as you know very well, 9 years ago, Germany decided to organize this Berlin conference that later on it was transformed into a Berlin process. And at that time, this was considered as an anti-depression pill because enlargement was dying away and the Berlin process was considered somehow as a platform that would bring our countries closer to EU. 9 years later, what's your assessment, your sober assessment when it comes to the deliverables of the Berlin process and also to the pitfalls?
I think there are certain achievements by Berlin process which are underestimated, but are seen in daily life of people quite a lot. On the other hand, I think it's a historic chance to finally see that Berlin process can be a very powerful tool in contributing to European perspective. And also, let's say it this way, the role of European institutions and law on the ground in the Western Balkans. So in this historic change, which might take place now with Ukraine, Moldova coming up and enlargement being back on stage as the most powerful instrument of foreign policy EU has, which is, by the way, actually clearly in the hands of the Commission by procedure, not clearly by decisions due to the situation in Council. It is a historic chance to, give the specific ability of Germany and the Berlin Process countries in general to give a further push and a further influx of ideas and abilities to this process. So I think that 10 years, almost 10 years after Berlin process started, with the inauguration of Chancellor Scholz and the new government last year, it is, more clearly now that it is an important part of the enlargement story, and nothing else. And, I think last year we made some deliverables which are starting to work out throughout the region. So I think that a lot of people with Kosovo passport driving with the cars through Serbia this summer had different experiences, more positive ones than last year, regarding border crossings to third countries, which is showing that, to Berlin process, the commitment is stable, and that it's delivering something. But I don't think that many recognize that thanks to Berlin process, we had only a queue, but we could choose other border crossing points. But if you talk about green lanes, if you talk about roaming, if you talk about all this stuff, EU and Berlin process delivering a lot in the region. And I think we try to do more, of course, but we should also talk positive about what should be to get more certainty that more is wanted.
When it comes to the certainty and to the fact that Chancellor Scholz has been quite vocal on the need for the acceleration of the EU accession process of Western Balkan countries, how do you see Berlin process in this context? So, do you feel the need for a better connection between the instruments and policies of the Berlin process with the EU accession process?
I think actually the connection is very clear and it's fitting very hand in hand. For me, it's clear that when the European Union first organization has been founded in 1950, the idea was to take out strategic industries, which are also strategically placed on the map between Germany and France, and who were one main reasons why after First World War it was not possible to get a peaceful development because of the localization of these industries on the map. So the idea then was to say, listen, we're going to give the control over this disputed industries, which also means the necessity about having control and legislation on the localities of them, to a Europeanized supranational commission. And I think the same logics is what Common Regional Market is delivering. Common Regional Market is nothing else than the execution of European law and European institutions in the Western Balkans, even if it's legally not in the way, but de facto it's in this way. To say that you six gonna do things together on the EU standards, which will bring you automatically closer to European Union, to try to interlink this already with European state of art and also on the ground. And to say actually that, RCC and the institutions of Common Regional Market are actually very much driven by Commission, EU Commission. So having this clear picture of Berlin process serving for Common Regional Market energy agenda, which is mainly, we do a lot bilaterally, also other countries, also the Commission, which is serving actually for making the markets of the Western Balkan being more prepared to the state of art of green agenda in the European Union in 2030, 2035. This is very much fitting inside. But Berlin process is giving us, the member states in Berlin process, but also Germany especially, another ability to contribute than only in the European process. By trying from a different angle, trying with other methods. And also, because we have this Merkel-gifted situation that in this, we have a clear policy how to deal with Kosovo and Serbia, which both sides accept, yeah, at least to a certain stage. And I think this is a real gift. We thank Chancellor Merkel to have it. That there is a format where we have like a fixed policy on Kosovo and Serbia, how to deal with all the questions coming up, where we can always fall back on, even if there are problems on other formats. So it's a huge chance, especially in this momentum, to use Berlin process as a tool for creating steps towards European Union.
In 2016, Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel was coming up with the idea of having a Berlin Plus. So basically, he wanted to have more food on the table by extending this platform also to other areas that were not explored at the time, first, and by bringing more financial contributions from European institutions and EU member states to this platform. What makes you optimist that this time this reinvigoration of the Berlin process will bear the fruits? Only the geopolitical context in which we are living, or you see more political awareness from Berlin and other capitals, namely Paris and Rome, that they want to move with the Balkan dossier?
Well, both what you said, but also the last year I made the experience that it was possible to create a momentum of teamwork between us, like Brussels, Paris, Berlin, the others, of course, Italy, for example, but not only. But basically also between the concepts, like it was not in the way that you had to talk much, but the ideas of Brussels and Berlin process were contributing to each other positively, so that it was falling into the beauty of the situation of a clear picture that we are on the same side of history. And I think also it's clear that Brussels doesn't have to be afraid about Berlin process. We are a tool for the agenda of Brussels, and this is fine for us. And of course, a powerful tool because German Chancellor and Foreign Minister, the coalition in Germany, it is important for them. But Olaf Scholz is not looking for being the Chancellor who made history by enlargements in his biography. He truly believes in the Western Balkans' future to European Union. It's like a Hatfield, he does this by conviction and not for like political gains. And the same is for Foreign Minister. And this is the German position. Yeah, we believe in the story we say. The geopolitical situation, I think, is also contributing a lot. When I was an MP for the Greens, I was for a long, long time advocating for European perspective for Ukraine. It was written in the Green Party program a time ago, but actually for almost 20 years, I was advocating about that. And I didn't see any chance to get an unanimous decision in the council on that, like 2 years ago. And I understand that in the Western Balkans, sometimes by waiting 20 years, so even longer than I was advocating, than even I was advocating for Ukraine. Now Ukraine seems like, taking up or even over. I think the main story should be everything what is done with Ukrainian enlargement can be used as a positive momentum in the Western Balkans. But do not only trust in the geopolitical arguments, because Europe is not functioning like that anymore. Yeah, the internal market, the acquis, is too important to only talk about geopolitics. In the end, it's also about standards in slaughterhouses, in food production, on the agricultural fields, in technical stuff, I buy my car in Poland, I have a guarantee all over Europe, certificates of compliance. So the market is too much integrated and there's so much legislation on details done in Brussels that you can only stick to geopolitical arguments for getting enlargement.
And sticking a little bit to this geopolitical argument and geopolitical environment in which we are living, do you think that the decision to organize the Berlin conference this year in Tirana in a couple of weeks is part of this feeling, of this geopolitical momentum that Germany wants to deliver a message that the future of our region is in the EU?
Yes, and there was a beauty of the thing to do it in the region itself, to like. But I think also the beauty depends on the results. So the most beautiful is to do it with great results. Even if it was in Gelsenkirchen, I would first measure the results. Of course, Tirana is much more beautiful than Gelsenkirchen. I would even say the better place to be than some places in Germany outside Hamburg, but officially I would never include our capital into these places, only unofficially. Yeah? But the idea is to show that the region is equal part in the process. Yeah, this is the idea.
When you speak about the reforms, the success, and the local ownership of the reform process, how would you assess the situation in the Western Balkans?
The political will of the European Union to enlarge has been weakened in the first 10 years, between the first 5 years between 2010 and 2015, perhaps go a bit further. And this, we also see that it has been also less in the region, perhaps as a reaction on this, perhaps not. Who cares? Who was first? Who is guilty? It doesn't matter. So we have to stick back to political will, and Germany is trying to put an influx of political will also into the region to create the reaction of more political will also. But for us, it is not so much about only opening chapters and opening negotiations also, especially for Albania and North Macedonia. It's also about showing political will by delivering on the ground. So we try to bring in political will as an influx of credibility of the European project into the region. But it's also, if you have had 10 years of enlargement crisis in the aftermath, and this is why Berlin process has been started 10 years ago, you will not change it from today to tomorrow. Yeah? But as I said before, this idea of having the path of Berlin process as a pushing tool for enlargement, I think is very much current state of art in this new geopolitical situation.
You mentioned a little bit before that Olaf Scholz believes that Western Balkans' place is within European Union, but he doesn't want to be remembered as the chancellor who made possible the enlargement.
I think it's only agenda.
I got your point, and we all know that the Big Bang of 2004 of the enlargement of EU was somehow inspired or driven or steered politically from Germany. He made this powerful speech last year about Zeitenwende, or how this Zeitenwende will be translated concretely for the Western Balkan citizens. Because nowadays, I'm afraid that people in the Balkans are associating Germany a lot with the wave of nurses and medical students and doctors that are leaving and are somehow causing a human bleed. So what is your experience is telling you in this respect?
To be very frank, the Western Balkans are so much interlinked, especially with Germany, Austria, Switzerland, since a long time. This is the reason why Chancellor Scholz loves the region. Yeah, because you are us, we are you. Yeah, if you try to make a clear cut who is German and who is Western Balkan, you would have already some problems. Yeah, but also the connections are very clear, and this is great strength of the region, because this is why you get the heart and also the, to a certain extent, the election logics of our leaders. Yeah? On the other hand, it's also a task because it means people can compare and people want to see results on the ground. So I would say, yes, it's right. Germany is seen this way. I remember when I was a young Green and Gerhard Schröder was coping with mass unemployment, and we had to campaign on the streets, and it looked really shitty for the red-green government. Everybody of the scientists was saying, yeah, but with some time, with demographic change, this problem will not be there anymore. And we thought like, yeah, but we have the problem now with the elections, yeah? And now we are 20 years later, and the scientists were right. So at least it is not a surprise. And I think there are two sides of this. On the one hand, of course, in the end, Germany, to a certain extent, will not like being nice to the Western Balkans and trying to not use this potential at all. On the other hand, it's also showing that reforms are not only there for a path to European Union, for checking boxes of Commission and the Council. Doing reforms is also an important signal to our citizens that you change, even when Europe is perhaps failing to deliver the answers on the done change. So let's not talk about who is responsible for that. It's clear. The migration situation will not change from today to tomorrow immediately, but we have to bring back confidence that the path of the Western Balkan 6 is in the way that you can stick to your country and be successful there, and the country will be successful. It's not anymore the individual success which is deciding on the pay. It's the success of the country. And on the other hand, also be clear that the credibility of European Union is relying on that if we promise something, we also deliver.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you on.
I'm there.